All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Amazon webinar, where we will be looking into the company. I'll just get everything set up right here. So today we're bringing you the Amazon case, which is about why Amazon as a company is winning. My name is Sam Wouters. I'm a consultant at Duval Union Consulting. And together with some of my colleagues, I've done extensive research about this organization because we have had so many questions from clients of ours, from colleagues, etc., about how this company works, why it's doing such crazy things in the world, and what everyone can learn about it. So to give you a little bit of insight in our organization, we are Duval Union Consulting. And what we do mostly is, first of all, bringing organizations insights and understanding in how the world is changing around them. Secondly, we help them create a strategy, a plan, actions to become stronger in the future that they see emerging. And thirdly, we help the organization change as a whole. So usually we start at a management level where we consult companies to deal with these challenges. And from there on out, we help them define specific projects in order to become a stronger company in the future. So we often like to call this the future-proof organization. And that's what we help organizations build. So today we're really focusing on this first aspect, on the insights and the understanding, helping you understand what kind of company Amazon is, how they are changing the world, and what you can learn from this as well. So I created this case together with my colleagues Dado van Petegem and Joko Dron, who are also quite well known for writing the digital transformation book. And emerging from that already, I believe we already mentioned Amazon in that book several times. But after looking into this company so much more, we really started to understand how much more there is to Amazon than a lot of people see. So in all of the research and trend watching that we have ever done, we have never come across a company like Amazon. They really are incredibly fascinating, the way they operate, the way they do acquisitions, the way they expand globally, the specific markets that they go into. Everything is so thought through. There's such a strategy to it, and that's what we'll be diving into. So it really employs unique strategies in everything it does, and it has these philosophies that make it unique as a company. What a lot of organizations do is looking at the philosophies and the principles of another organization and just copying those, but you'll really have to find your own thing, but perhaps you can learn a thing or two from the way Amazon does it. So we believe that every organization can actually learn a lot from the way Amazon works today. Doesn't matter if you're a very big player or just a small one. There are principles throughout this presentation, throughout this webinar, that help you understand more about what Amazon does and how you can apply some of those learnings to your company as well. So in the Amazon case, we'll give you an insight in how Amazon works and why it is so incredibly successful. Starting with a brief overview of Amazon itself. Most people have heard about it today, but not everyone really understands like the whole route they went through to get to where they are today. So they actually started from humble beginnings in the 90s, where Amazon.com was actually just a online bookshop where people could buy books, whatever they liked. And back then, of course, this didn't really exist yet. It was a new concept. Not that many people were online yet because they were very skeptical about it. And Amazon had just a small office in Seattle, and that's where everything got started. In this office as well, you could see Jeff Bezos with his nice little desk, which actually was a door that he constructed himself to be his desk. And it was really important for him to remain humble in the beginning and to understand the client and to see how he could make this whole thing work. But then very rapidly, a few years later, they did an IPO, which was very successful in the US. And they started to expand their businesses across a whole range of services and kind of stepped away from only selling books and started doing a whole lot more. So there's a lot of acquisitions that are historically quite well known, like buying IMDb, which is the movie rating database that you can find online. Of course, Pets.com, which was talked about a lot back then, the acquisition of Zappos, and a whole lot of other companies that they started to buy into over the years. Then eventually, Amazon actually became twice as valuable as Walmart, which is an incredible milestone, considering Walmart is such a physical retail player. But all of a sudden, in the course of just a few years, Amazon shot right past its competition and started to put a lot of pressure on those organizations. they really had to sort of reinvent themselves in many ways, and they still are working on this challenge every day, I'm sure, in order to be able to deal with these disruptive players like Amazon, but also many others. So Amazon eventually started to dominate the US e-commerce market. And today they have over 34% of the entire US market share in e-commerce, which is an incredibly high number. Basically, this whole slide sums it up for basically the past 20 years of Amazon. In the beginning, Jeff Bezos was this humble guy who sold books online, and nowadays he can sell whatever he wants because he's really building a global e-commerce empire and going way beyond that into logistics, into all kinds of services. So Amazon holds these philosophies, things that are really important to them, things that they apply in all of the decisions that they make. And these are really interesting insights that I think a lot of organizations can learn from. You'll recognize a lot of things that you maybe say today as well, but there's a difference between saying something and claiming that you do something and actually doing it. So they go really far on these things. So Jeff Bezos said in his 1997 letter to Amazon shareholders, because of our emphasis on the long term, we make decisions and weigh trade-offs differently than some companies. So he was already telling his investors back then, you'll have to keep in mind that we will not operate the way you're used to from other companies. We look at the world in a totally different way, and if you're not up for that, then maybe you're not the right fit as an investor. So what Amazon's been doing is investing all of its profits in expansion for decades. So just a few years ago, a lot of organizations were still saying, Zalando, it's not making any profit. Amazon's still not making any profit. But what they're actually doing is constantly reinvesting all of their profits into expansion in order to sort of create a very wide range of income streams and ensure that they will still be able to actually capture a profit in the future. Because if they were constantly taking it now, they would not be growing as rapidly as they would like to. So they're really thinking this whole thing through. And if you look at the graph, it's just crazy how the revenue keeps going up. Top line's doing extremely well. And then in the bottom line, it just looks so stable. And you're wondering, what are they doing? Are they ever going to start taking profit or not? But if you compare that with the share price, that's actually been going crazy year after year. So people really are buying into this philosophy of constantly reinvesting into new ventures, new profits, and new revenue streams, really, and profit generators. So Jeff Bezos actually runs a 350,000 employee startup, as he calls it. And that's a really big challenge. I mean, a lot of organizations do not get this big, but getting to this point means that a lot of corporate influence is starting to get in there. And it can become very hard to move fast, to keep experimenting, to keep failing. But that's what makes them so incredibly powerful, because they are able to do this. So he has a few principles, and I've shown them for you here on the slides. The first one is to set the bar high in hiring. We often talk about digital transformation, but really it's about changing the mindset of the people as well, not just the technology, not just the business models, but the people need to change the way that they work as well, the way that they understand the world, the way that they build out the business, the way that they create new services. And so it all starts with hiring. If you don't hire the right people, if you don't hire digital-minded people that understand this new world, then it's really hard to get to the place where you want to be. So he said, this has been and will continue to be the single most important element of Amazon's success. You can work long, hard, or smart, but at Amazon, you can't choose 2 out of the 3. So he really wants people that are fully dedicated to this and that can really help to contribute to this world vision that the organization has. The second is true customer obsession. And of course, every company says this. We want to really focus on the client, be there for the client, provide the best service. But Amazon says that staying a startup requires you to experiment patiently, accept failures. This is hard for a lot of organizations. You have to constantly plant seeds for new projects, for new potential branches of your organization, new startups, etc. You have to protect things that are actually doing well in terms of the potential of the idea, but perhaps not generating as much revenue as you would like already. A lot of organizations like to kill these kinds of ideas, but they really want to protect these things, keep funding them, and figuring out ways to make them work. And of course, you have to double down when you see customer delight. When you see something work, catch on, you have to go all in on it and really make it grow. So customer-obsessed culture best creates the conditions where all of this can happen. And that's why they're focusing on it so much. The third is that proactivity helps to create trust within the organization. So he says that when we're at our best, we don't wait for external pressures. And this is what a lot of organizations do, and a lot of people in general anyways. A lot of people like to not really change anything about their lifestyle or change anything about the way they do business until someone tells them to start improving. We like the status quo because as humans, we're generally somewhat lazy. So Jeff says we're internally driven to improve our services, adding benefits and features before we have to. And that's a really important detail there. They do everything before they have to, before the market forces them to. They lower the prices, they increase the value for customers, and invent things before people even ask them to invent those things. So they really start from the belief that it can always be better. And they are the ones who have to figure out how it can be better before people start telling them this service is bad. I want to improve these products, etc. So they're really looking at it themselves. Then the fourth is to resist proxies. And what this means is that as companies get larger and more complex, they focus on doing the processes right instead of focusing on what the outcome of that process is. So as you grow as an organization, people like to focus on what exactly they're supposed to be doing on the whole process and not really on what the end result should be for their internal colleagues, for their partners, for their clients. So what these kind of companies do is really looking, what do we need to get to and how can we get there in the best and most efficient way with the best results? And maybe that means throwing all of the processes we have today out of the window and reinventing the whole thing. And that's what they're willing to do if it's not working out. So the process is not the thing. It's always worth asking, do we own the process because the process owns us? And I'm sure in your own job, you've sometimes wondered, why exactly am I still doing it this way? Is it the most efficient way of doing it? Because we're seeing these new kinds of technologies, new possibilities. Why not try it that way? The fifth is to embrace external trends. And this is what we believe in as an organization as well. It's so important to do trend watching because if you're fighting against a certain trend, you're probably fighting the future. If you see everyone shopping online, you can keep trying to not do that and only focus on the physical world, but you know that's going to cause you a lot of trouble in the future. So if you actually embrace trends, then you can create a tailwind. Now, perhaps that tailwind isn't as profitable as where exactly you are today, but there are all kinds of possibilities, reinventing business models, setting up new kind of packages to ensure that you do have this position and that you can actually attract new revenue streams. So Jeff Bezos really nails it here because he says we're in the middle of a very obvious transformation right now. He doesn't need to hide it from everyone because everyone knows this is going on. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are a major thing. And they go as far as saying if you don't do anything in artificial intelligence today, you're probably not going to be in a very good position over the next few years. And if you're not doing anything in 5 years, you're probably gone as a company. This is what a lot of these kind of thought leaders say, because they are investing in it so heavily, acquiring startups, trying out new kinds of products and services. So embrace the external trends. Don't keep fighting against them and don't wait until they change your sector. Be the one who leads this change. And that may cause some failures along the way, but eventually if you do proactively approach these kind of problems, then you may have a lot of success. And the sixth one is high velocity decision making, as they call it. And it's a really interesting one because they have a 350,000 person company. How do you ensure the decisions can be made quickly? So the team at Amazon keeps its decision making velocity high. Speed matters in business and it's a more fun environment is what all of them on the team say really. So never use a one size fits all decision making process. Processes are nice, but you don't want to have too many of them and you don't want to try to force something if it doesn't make sense. Make most decisions with 70% of the information you wish you had. And I think that's a really important characteristic, a really important rule to have, to not always try to work everything out until you have a 100% approval and everything is super certain, because by that time your competitors will already have done it. New players may have emerged in your sector and started to do it way before you did. You also have to quickly recognize and correct bad decisions. So if you spot anything early on that wasn't done well, make sure you correct it and take it on then, and don't let it grow out into this thing that should never have launched to the client, that should never have been a problem within your organization. Then a really cool one, I think, and of course they have a bit of luxury there to do it because Amazon has very large budgets, is to disagree and commit. So if you trust the people but not the idea, still let the people go ahead with developing the idea, and perhaps they will prove you wrong and actually put something into the market that's really valuable. The fifth one is to recognize true misalignment early and escalate it immediately. So to see if everyone's on board with the same kind of vision and taking that kind of problem and clearing it out, and don't let it stick around forever until everything's launched and done, and then all of these kind of problems emerge. So high velocity decision making does come with failure, of course. If you go very fast, the chances are that you might break a few more things. So Jeff Bezos says you need to be making big, noticeable failures. The great thing is that when you take this approach, a small number of winners pay for dozens or hundreds of failures. And so every single important thing that we've done has taken a lot of risk-taking, perseverance, guts, and some have worked out. Most of them have not. That is to happen at every scale level all the way down. So when you hear about giant acquisitions that Amazon's doing, about new breakthroughs and products, think that every time you see something like this, there are actually 100 mistakes behind it. There are hundreds of ways that they screwed up, that they had the wrong product market fit, etc. These things happen, will continue to happen, and that's part of their culture. So that's 100% success rate that some organizations like to chase isn't really that realistic. There's going to be a lot of failure. And some of those failures can be very costly. If you look at Amazon, they had this Daily Deals website that they acquired so many years ago, $231 million loss. The Amazon Fire Phone, which was a big deal when it was announced back then, but nobody actually wanted to use it, $170 million in loss. And they also tried to get into food delivery and all kinds of other startups, also dozens of millions of dollars in losses because they weren't the right decisions. This happens. And of course, Amazon's also had some recent big bets, and that's really what they get remembered for a lot of the time. So buying Whole Foods for $13.7 billion. Of course, the offer on Slack for $9 billion as well, and buying Souq.com, which is a marketplace in the Middle East, for $650 million. These are the kind of things that get a lot of press, but don't be distracted by the press alone. You have to think about the process behind it, about the process to get to these kind of deals, to get to these kind of ventures. And it's always through failing a lot, but persevering and trying new things out. And of course, they've done loads more acquisitions and investments. We won't be going through all of that in detail today. You can look all of that up online. There are some really interesting companies that they have acquired, and we will look into the reason why they acquired them and the thought process behind these kind of decisions, behind how they make partnerships, how they put pressure on their partners as well to keep performing as good as Amazon does. So all of that in a moment. Now, before we get into the strategic part, here's a picture of Amazon's new office in Seattle, in case you want some kind of funny, lighthearted distraction. So it's a really beautiful space, as you can see, and I'm sure they'll continue to develop these kinds of nice working spaces that make people want to work for this company. Of course, if you don't have the millions in budgets to create such nice offices, there are still little things you can do to make the people around you happy and to have fun at work. So the strategy, and that's really the bulk of this presentation, the thing that fascinates so many people. Amazon rarely actually explains its short-term tactics or its long-term strategic vision. It values surprise most of all. They have a really interesting strategy that I'll explain in a moment. So what we're interested in here, if we look at the graph, is not the part where it started rising like crazy. It's actually the foundation that was laid in the years before that. And this is something Jeff Bezos said himself as well in an interview, where he said, our quarterly results were pretty much fully baked about 3 years ago. Today, I'm working on a quarter that is going to happen in 2020. If you start to think that way, it changes how you spend your time, how you plan, and where you put your energy. So a lot of people like to look at the last quarter and be like, wow, Jeff Bezos did it again. Amazon did it again. It's crazier than ever before. But actually, all of these things were already set in motion years ago. And if you can do that as an organization, then you really can be building the future. Of course, a lot of organizations have to deal with the challenges of today, and there are quite a lot of those. But of course, it's like it's sort of a cycle that you're stuck in. And that's what you eventually need to break out of so you can start working on the future more and more. That brings along a lot of challenges, and of course, we're always happy to look into that and see if we can help you deal with that. So to keep performance of the company high and innovation in a continuous loop, Amazon deploys what we call the externalization strategy. So how does this work? Well, you have Amazon itself today, and it is all kinds of internal services. You might have the IT department, you might have legal, you might have a logistics service that works internally. And these kind of services get pushed to the edge of the organization. And they've actually been doing this for the past 15 years. And we identified 9 strategic reasons why Amazon is doing this. Now, this whole strategy that I'll be showing you, it's not verified. We didn't talk to some C-level person at Amazon to check if this is actually their strategy, because they wouldn't put it on the table. But from everything we have observed, this really seems to be the way that they are operating. So the first reason why they're doing this, why they're pushing internal services to the edge of the organization, is to create additional revenue streams. So at the edge of the organization, what I mean by that is that both Amazon will be the internal client, but there will also be external clients that make use of this service. So it might be something that Amazon's really good at and that they can also sell to external partners. So the second reason then is expansion. They want to emerge, they want to go into emerging markets, they want to enter new kinds of verticals where they can offer their internal services to new clients that they might not have serviced before. So they go to different markets, but they copy the same strategy over and over they've already used internally. And these are things that everyone sees. Of course, it's obvious when Amazon opens up this new service, everyone understands that this is to make more profit, but there are far more reasons why they do this. The third one is increased accountability. So what this means is that the moment you allow external clients to make use of your internal service, that the management will say, that's very nice internal service, here are some KPIs for the next year. Here are some revenue goals that you will need to meet. So all of a sudden, this internal department gets pressure from the outside world. They will have to start selling to a lot of clients, providing better services, etc., in order to reach those goals, really. So they get pressure from both the inside and the outside, and that makes them far more professional in their work. So it's no longer people from HR complaining about IT not cooperating and IT complaining about all the legal hurdles. All of a sudden, they have external clients, and those need to be happy, or it really hurts the whole organization. The fourth reason is benchmarking. And this is a really cool one, in my opinion, because they can actually see if external clients want to make use of their internal service. So if Amazon starts offering one of their services to external clients and nobody is interested, that means that actually the service they are using internally is not the best in the market. Because if it was the best, then clients would come. So they can constantly see that if everything that they use internally is the best that's out there. And if that's not the case, then they can look at why this is the reason, how they can improve it, and how Amazon as a whole can benefit as well through these improvements. The fifth reason is innovation. Because of course, if you have more people using your platforms and your services, then a lot more suggestions will pop up about how you can improve these things, and you will have far more data to work with as well to make decisions on. The sixth reason is capacity optimization, and this is really applicable in everything regarding to logistics. All of a sudden, they can always fill up all of their trucks, all of their delivery vehicles, to make sure that they're always running at maximum capacity and don't just have a lot of leftovers. So of course, as Amazon, if they want to be the largest e-commerce empire in the world, then they're going to have excesses everywhere because they need to make sure that they can service all of their clients. And they can sell these accesses to external third parties that want to make use of them as well, to always run at optimal capacity. Seventh reason is leverage with partners. And as you might know, if you're from the US, there's a lot of there are some kind of wars and discussions going on between Amazon and UPS and DHL and FedEx and you name them, because Amazon wants them to perform as well as possible, of course. Amazon relies on these external third parties to do all of its deliveries, and if they don't deliver on time, or if they don't deliver in locations where clients want them to go, then of course these clients will be unhappy. So Amazon wants these parties to do as well as possible. And if Amazon has all of the volume, then they can create better deals with those partners. They can negotiate with them and say, well, if you don't want to work with our deal, then we'll actually take away all of this revenue that we're creating for you, and we'll do it ourselves or something. So they're really challenging the competition. They're forcing the incumbents to keep innovating by externalizing these services. They're basically saying to the delivery partners, if you don't do your job well, then we will create a delivery service and it will be better than you. So be careful and keep innovating or we will replace you. So that's an immense amount of leverage that they have, immense amount of power in order to push their competition to be the best they can be. That's, of course, it sounds like the negative side, but the positive side is, of course, that there's a lot more innovation, that all of these other companies keep moving forward as well, creating far more jobs, creating more efficiencies. So it's a healthy kind of pressure as well in that sense. And the ninth is removing growth barriers. So even if the competition innovates, it may not be enough and it may slow down growth. So if UPS does not deliver fast enough, etc., then that might be a growth barrier for Amazon, which wants to claim the entire market eventually. So if Amazon can create its own logistics service, then they can remove this growth barrier. In case their partner doesn't live up to the expectations, they can ensure that they keep growing at the maximum possible rate they're able to, and that there's definitely no kind of partner that they work with which might hold them back in some way. So these are the 9 reasons altogether, the externalization strategy, as we called it. And we believe that this is something every organization can do. You have to look internally at what your strengths are, and those might not necessarily be selling the products or services that you do today. Perhaps your organization is incredibly good at archiving, is really good at legal because you have so many procedures going on all of the time. And maybe you can create some kind of service that you can give other parties access to as well. You can provide as a marketplace, and they can provide in some kind of subscription package. These are the kind of thought exercises that you have to do. And it's something Amazon constantly does. To give you an idea, these are some of the services that this strategy is used on. They did the same with Amazon Web Services, which is the cloud that they have, of course. With Amazon Alexa, they started using artificial intelligence internally, and then why not let clients use it as well? Of course, their Amazon Marketplace, where third-party sellers go, the logistics that they do, even a video conferencing tool that they initially developed to use internally and then started selling in the market. And then, of course, all kinds of other services that they have. So let's look at one service in detail to really go through this strategy and help you understand how this works. So the Amazon.com marketplace is a place where third-party sellers can also sell goods. And Amazon pushed its own sales platform to the edge of the organization. As a result, Amazon won over third-party sellers because they began to offer their fulfillment services. And that completely unburdened those third parties. If you have an e-commerce web shop today, you will know how easy it is to launch that shop. You need to create your own website. But there are templates for that, like WordPress and all kinds of stuff. You need to plug into some kind of shopping platform. A lot of people like to use Shopify for that, and all kinds of other services as well. And what this means is that for the individual entrepreneur, it becomes really easy to launch their own business. Now, what Amazon does is also taking care of all of the fulfillment. So as an entrepreneur, you don't need to worry about the logistics. You just need to sell on Amazon. You need to do your marketing, your advertising, and then you're good to go. So Amazon unburdens third parties, and this is something we see in a lot of discussions with our clients as well. How can you unburden the parties in your value chain? How can you create extra services that you can provide to them so that they can focus on what they're really good at? And of course, they will pay you some money for the services that you provide to them. So Amazon's doing this with these third-party sellers and basically enables them to do their business, to develop their business a lot better and focus on what they're good at. So in 2005, Amazon introduced its Prime membership with free 2-day shipping for millions of third-party items. And previously, it was only doing these kind of deliveries for Amazon goods. But now that these third-party sellers came on the platform as well, these could also make use of the Prime membership. And the numbers speak for themselves. Prime members actually spend way more money on Amazon than non-Prime shoppers because they're used to this. They start to just buy everything on Amazon. And that's really where Amazon wants to get to. Now, if you apply this strategy to the third-party marketplace, then the additional revenue is obvious because they're doing these third-party sales now on the platform, and they get a little bit of profit out of it. They have a profit margin, a cut that they take from the transaction. And what that means is that even if this third-party seller is actually breaking even, Amazon will always make profit. They always get a percentage of this transaction. So it's not actually in their best interest to ensure that as many parties as possible have as much profit as possible. They just want a lot of competition, so the prices keep lowering, customers keep coming in, and they keep getting cuts out of all of their sales. Second reason, the expansion. Amazon can now offer goods in markets that it doesn't sell in itself through millions of sellers that now start using its marketplace. And these, of course, all become Prime members, start using all kinds of other Amazon services. So it was a really logical decision for Amazon to make its sales platform, its tools available to other parties. The increased accountability, the third parties began to use the Amazon platform, and that increased the volume and need for them to really start optimizing everything that they did, to start selling more, and also for them to see the benchmarking, of course, whether people were actually interested in those products. So if the third parties would not come to the Amazon marketplace, this would be a clear sign to Amazon that their marketplace was not very user-friendly, that it didn't have enough clients, etc. So it's a good way for them to see, is this actually the best kind of marketplace that we are selling our own products from, or are there things we can improve so that more third-party sellers will also join our software and our platform? The fifth reason, innovation. Of course, more users on the third-party marketplace means that more data is collected, that there's more feedback to improve it. So that's a really obvious one. The sixth one, the capacity optimization. Amazon gets to use all of the excess capacity that it hasn't filled up with its own sales. So the warehousing that they have, the transportation that they have, logistics, etc. All of it can be optimized. And of course, on the marketplace itself, in the virtual world, there really isn't any kind of limit in how many products they can display. Number 7 then, the leverage with partners. Higher shipping volumes lead to more leverage and better deals with the logistics partners that I mentioned before. The challenging of the competition, the incumbent logistics partners are actually forced to innovate to remain relevant for Amazon. So if they're not doing their job, Amazon will replace them. And there's actually a lot of discussions going on about this. Amazon wants to expand its logistics services in 2018. So this pressure is already happening. And finally, remove the growth barriers. So the competing marketplaces and logistics partners can be barriers in Amazon's growth, and it is now able to push the competition out of the market by continuously growing. And that means that they will become stronger and stronger through externalizing this service. So this third-party marketplace, which was initially just an internal service that they have to put their products into, actually turned out to be 50% of all of its all of the third-party sales in the marketplace started happening on here. So it's now good for $23 billion per year, or 17% of Amazon's revenue, which is an incredible number. So imagine if all of those years ago, Amazon had not made the decision to externalize this marketplace. It's a gigantic source of their revenue today to allow third-party sellers on their platform as well. If they would have only stuck with their own beliefs, their own products and services, then they would have missed out on a gigantic opportunity. And perhaps it would have failed as well, but that's what they would have found out back then by trying. So if you look at Amazon's total revenue, you look at the breakdown, then actually most of their profit comes from the retail products that they sell themselves. Then the retail third-party seller services are actually increasing. So that's actually the revenue that they earn on every transaction by the third-party sellers. And then you have other categories such as the subscription services, the Amazon Cloud services, and other new things that they're getting into. So you actually see their own sales decreasing over the years, and the revenue from the third parties really all around the organization increase because so many more people are attracted to it. So if we take Amazon Cloud services as an example here, Amazon wants to be the biggest shop in the world. And in order to do that, they needed to have the best and most scalable infrastructure that was available. So they created their own. And then as a result, there was probably some very smart person internally that thought, hey, why not sell this service to others? If we know how to create the best environment for a digital shop, then why not offer this as some kind of package, as an easy service for other parties? And so Amazon Web Services was born. And this disrupted the entire storage and server industry because there used to be a lot of small players that would do hosting, web design, etc. And then Amazon started providing this service in a super scalable way. As a result, a lot of the companies that are incredibly large today that you might have heard of, the tech companies, they could never have grown as big as they did if they could not rely on Amazon's extremely scalable infrastructure. So Amazon actually facilitated a lot of these US startups that grew so incredibly big by providing them the technical parts that they would need to invent themselves from scratch if it hadn't been there. So that's a really powerful driver of innovation right there. Now imagine, and this doesn't exist, but it's just the same exercise done here. Imagine that Amazon starts selling fresh food, which they're doing through Amazon Fresh. In order to do that, in order to deliver fresh food everywhere as efficiently as possible, they would need to build the best distribution infrastructure because you don't want food to go bad. So all of a sudden, they might invent the commercial Fresh Cloud, where they provide services to any kind of food startup, to any cook in the world, to any business in the world, to very rapidly deliver fresh food so that it never goes bad. And all of a sudden, all of those new entrepreneurs don't need to worry about whether they can get the food to the client on time. They just need to sign in on Amazon and participate in this food cloud, in this network of distribution that's always on time. And there they go. So this is why so many people are drawn to these platforms, because they unburden them from the things they don't want to worry about. Now, this might disrupt the entire distribution and food retail market. Because if our food can be delivered anywhere in the world within just a few hours, anywhere in the world is, of course, long future, but in the short future, of course, in a lot of cities. So if you can do that very rapidly, then people will expect the same thing from retail. Why can my food be there in 15 minutes, but my clothes take a day, or 2 or 3 or 4 days? So that's really going to put a lot of pressure on this industry. And there's a lot of discussions like, is this sustainable or not? And Amazon is, of course, innovating a lot in the space to look for sustainable ways to do these deliveries. Now, really what you see throughout the entire acquisitions that they do, throughout the entire strategy, is that they're creating as many online and offline touch points as possible. Amazon basically wants to be everywhere and provide you with any product that you could possibly imagine. So they're actually getting into your house now with an Alexa, and we have one in the office ourselves. They have the dash buttons, which is the press of the button, you're ordering something, and it's going to get delivered through Amazon Prime in just 2 days. And the Amazon Dash wand, where you can say something to it, or you can scan a product, and it's going to add it to your shopping list and order it for you. Now, if Amazon starts getting into your home, then of course there's a lot of challenge there, because other companies such as Walmart and Target may not be. So they're now partnering with Google Home for voice shopping. They want to challenge Amazon, but not by creating these devices themselves as well, not by getting into artificial intelligence themselves, but by looking for a partner such as Google that is also somewhat afraid of Amazon in some ways. Because Google wants to be the one where people go for shopping. But if you look at the US today, a lot of consumers actually just directly go to Amazon and buy all of their products there. So Google really wants to maintain that client relationship, ensure that people will still ask Google where to buy products, and then to do it that way. Now, if we get things like the Amazon Echo into our homes, that has a lot of implications that a lot of people don't really think about. Because soon Amazon will know what you look like, what your mood is, if you gained weight, when you're home, what's in your house, and the list just goes on and on and on. And this is really apparent from the acquisitions that they do. They acquired a 3D body model startup. So if you can make 3D models just by using the camera, then over time you will probably be able to see whether people have gained weight, etc., such as I mentioned. They also added an AR shopping feature into their app. And of course, if they can do these kind of things, then they'll need to look around your house, see what kind of products you have, and start recommending you the things that they feel like you're missing. These kind of things will happen. Of course, they're also building an increasing amount of physical locations or acquiring them, such as Whole Foods, which is already mentioned. Of course, they also have their Amazon Fresh pickup stores, and they might not have a whole lot of some of these concepts. Like Amazon Go, where you can just walk out of the store with a product. That's just a pilot right now. It's being launched in several places, but perhaps it won't really take off. Perhaps there are too many challenges with doing it. And then Amazon, with a small budget, tested out this new kind of concept to see if it would work. Of course, if Amazon Go does work, they can start selling this service of like no checkouts, just walking out of the store with a product, to all kinds of supermarket chains all around the world. So Amazon doesn't necessarily want to own all of the supermarkets in the world or be all of the supermarkets in the world. They can just create this service and start selling it to everyone and making revenue out of all of these transactions that happen globally. That is their goal. Of course, the recent addition that I mentioned, Amazon buys Whole Foods, and it's a really cool tweet from Dennis K. Berman, who said, Amazon did not just buy Whole Foods grocery stores, it bought 431 upper income, prime location, distribution nodes for everything it does. And that's what Amazon does with these touch points. They just try to reach people everywhere in all aspects of their life to really increase the chance of selling them extra services, of ensuring that they become Prime members, start shopping a lot more on its platforms. So the whole thing is such a crazy machine that's completely thought through. There's a really nice article about this at Slate.com, where this blogger explains how basically this acquisition forces everyone to start thinking about Amazon Prime and about getting an Alexa as well, because if all of it is integrated, then it's such a convenient thing to do. Now, another interesting aspect about all of these touch points is that Amazon is claiming the client relationship everywhere. And this is really interesting for advertisers, because instead of only looking at Google and Facebook, which is where most of the advertising happens today, all of these big advertising holding groups are planning to boost their spending on Amazon because they're seeing all of the eyeballs move towards Amazon. They're seeing all of the shopping move towards it as well. So actually, Amazon is making far more digital advertising revenue than Twitter or Snapchat is today. So Amazon is basically winning in the front because they have the channel that they're completely controlling, and they have the destination where you shop, and they're starting to look into all kinds of other front-facing services such as Slack, such as your TV even. And it's winning like in the back like a Trojan horse. So they're kind of providing this really nice service for you where as an entrepreneur you almost can't say no. They just unburden you so much. And what they're actually doing is providing you all of the infrastructure and basically owning part of your business that way, ensuring that you can do what you do through their services. So in that sense, they are creating a win-win situation, but they also have a lot of control into everything that goes on. And no other organization in the world can do this because Amazon is the only one who controls their entire value chain when it comes to this kind of scale and this kind of business. So this is why Amazon always wins. They're both in the front and in the back. And the backside is actually what a lot of people don't see. So to make all of this happen, to ensure that all of these products get delivered, and this is a really big part of what Amazon does, logistics. Goods need to be taken from A to B, and that's always going to be a thing. Amazon knows this, but there's a lot of efficiency gain to be done there. So I already mentioned Amazon Prime, which means that people who become an Amazon Prime member, a subscription of, I believe, $13 per month, they get 2-day delivery on 100 million items that are sold on Amazon. They also get access to exclusive video, audio, and reading content. So Amazon is also challenging players like Netflix and HBO there by also creating their own exclusive content, by having its own e-reader, etc. So to give you an idea, through Prime, 5 billion items were shipped in 2017. The service is only offered in the US. There are about 90 million US customers that they have. So if you do the math, that's basically about one order per Prime member that they have per week, which is a really high frequency. That's the average, of course, not the power of users. So if you look at this background thing here, this whole warehouse that Amazon has full of goods, full of sorting, full of packaging here, we can't explain to you how all of this works. It's just the machine that feeds this whole thing, that ensures that all of the goods get from A to B. And they've probably done incredible studies and improvements there in terms of efficiency to ensure that they can handle more packages per hour than any other factory might be able to. So innovations here, of course, the Kiva robot, which a lot of people have seen by now. Really cool how these little robots just sit underneath all of the cabinets full of goods, and they deliver them, or they basically drive them around the warehouse to the order picker that just needs to take it out of this drone, basically take it out of the thing on top of the robot, and it will drive back to where it was. So it's like a constantly living and evolving warehouse that's just being driven around by robots, really. Of course, Amazon mostly relies on partners for their delivery, such as UPS and many other players, but they're also starting to use flex workers. It, of course, looks good in PR if you provide a lot of jobs in these kind of markets, but it's also useful for them because it makes delivery a lot more local, because there's actually a person delivering that they might know from their own neighborhood that just delivers to all of the people around them. So it has very positive aspects to it in that way. As already mentioned, Amazon is increasingly investing in its own logistics solutions. They're building these trucks, Amazon Fresh trucks that are increasingly out there for rapid fresh food delivery. They're also actually, and this is not a joke, they're getting 40 planes. I believe they already have 15 or 25 right now. But they're investing in order to get their own air freight in order to ship anywhere in the world a lot more quickly than they can today. Of course, the drones, you've probably seen the videos where drones are just dropping packages at home in your garden, And this is something that they're really looking into as well. It has a lot of regulatory challenges with all of the drones flying around our cities and the danger that might have. But they're really innovating in this because they understand if we want to deliver short range in cities, the fastest way is through a drone. And they're going really far on this. So if you actually want to really get into the details, it's really interesting to look at the patents that Amazon is filing. So they have these crazy things like delivering from flying warehouses. So having a Zeppelin over a city filled with Amazon goods where drones constantly fly out of, deliver to the city itself, and then fly back up to get recharged. Crazy idea, sounds like complete science fiction, but Amazon is looking into this because it could be a huge efficiency gain for them. They're also looking into self-driving pods, which are of course safer because they're on the ground. And that brings along other challenges, of course, such as people trying to steal these pods or messing with them. So they're looking at how they can evolve these kind of services so that they can work by themselves. Of course, also crazy ideas like dropping goods by parachute to save just a little bit of time of the drone landing and taking back off. So that's just what we found through our research. And this is by no means an extensive case that includes everything that Amazon does today, but it's just doing so incredibly much. And we feel like most of the benefits you get from looking at Amazon are by understanding the principles that they operate on and seeing how you can learn a lot from that in your organization. So the big question is, what are you going to do with all of this knowledge? Are you going to look at your internal services in your company, see what you're good at, see if you can provide this to external parties, if you can unburden some of the people in your value chain? These are the kind of thought exercises that you should do as a company, and this is what we do with our clients all the time. So I have 8 takeaways for you, and perhaps you have some for yourself as well. The first one is to work out your long-term North Star vision, your strategy, instead of just focusing on the short term. And I know that's difficult because you have a lot of challenges today, but it's really important to get the right people around the table to make these decisions and to keep moving forward as an organization. You have to think about the steps you can take to become a digital-first organization. And it's digital first, not digital only. Because Amazon as well, they're getting into the physical world because they understand there's a need to. But the concept of what we do in the physical world is also rapidly changing through technology. You have to set a high standard in hiring. If you really want to get to the next level, then you can't have people sitting around and not really understanding what's going on. They have to make an effort and ensure that they can add value to the organization. So you really have to transform them through the people and not by only looking at the technology. The fourth is to externalize your internal strengths and services for any of the 9 reasons that Amazon does. I said earlier, don't copy what Amazon does, but this is a really obvious one that I think any organization can do and should do. The 5th one is to not wait for external pressure to improve, but start innovating proactively. So don't just wait for a client to complain anymore. Try to look at this thing that you do today and think from the client's perspective, how could this be even more convenient? How could this be even better, shorter, quicker, faster, easier? That's what you should focus on, and stop waiting for them or the competition to innovate so that you also have to do. 6th one is to embrace external trends. Don't waste your energy fighting the inevitable. So if you see this new kind of crazy technology emerge that might disrupt your organization, you can try to fight back against it, but ultimately you're going to benefit a lot more by going all in on it instead. 7th is to engage in high velocity decision making at all levels in the organization. Sometimes making decisions without getting approval from I don't know how many levels above you. That means that you'll fail a lot, but learn even more. And if that is the mindset of the entire organization at all levels, to not shame failure, to not punish failure, but to encourage it and to keep learning most of all, then you can really do a lot of things that many other companies are not able to do. The 8th is to not fully try to copy Amazon, or you will be a cook and not a chef. And ultimately, you'll need to be your own chef. You'll need to create your own path, see what kind of principles are important for your organization. And of course, some inspiration from a company like Amazon doesn't hurt. And above all, it's really important to start today. So look at the takeaways, think of the takeaways that you have yourself, and see how you can start doing the things that you do today better, more efficient, and perhaps you might not grow as large as Amazon, but even being 1% of the size of Amazon is already pretty damn good. So perhaps that's a nice goal to work towards. So if you want to run your organization the way Amazon does, and if you want to understand more about the digital world, you could start with our digital transformation book, which you can find on digitaltransformationbook.com. We've sold it in over 50 countries, and what it does is give you a framework to understand the digital world, to understand how the world is evolving, and to create a plan, a strategy, and actions in order to work towards a better future for your organization. This case was brought to you by me and Dado and Jo, of course, and we work at Devaluing Consulting, where we help clients on a daily basis with all of these challenges that I mentioned before. And we are based out of Belgium, Europe. We're also opening offices just now in the Netherlands, in the Middle East, and we're basically working for clients across all kinds of industries around the world. So feel free to visit us at devaluingconsulting.com. Send us an email, let's have a chat and see how we can help your organization out. I hope it was interesting to you, and if you got a bit of insight in how Amazon works, this crazy externalization strategy, and that you will find some really useful insights for your company that you can start applying tomorrow or can start thinking about tomorrow and working out. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.